morning, everyone, and welcome to American Scousers Morning Coffee or Tea with American Scouser. We are back on a Monday morning, so Grumpy is in the house as every Monday, always brought to you by Reckless Coffee Roasters, and always with the Polish Prince on Monday mornings. What is happening?
Good morning. Not much, just recovering from a bit of stormy weather yesterday. If you're around the Chicago area, it got a little dicey last night. So, yeah, it's but we're up, we're ready. I know it's not Friday, but it feels like a reckless morning. So I've got the reckless. Oh, that's awkward. It's on the other side.
It is on the other side. Yes, I always do with this. See, I think you guys you're a bit more north. I think you got the tornado watch, which is never fun as well. While we only got the ridiculous storms till I think like 2 or something like that. So the boys were not happy. They were not. It was very tense downstairs last night. But all good. But then you just informed me that we're getting more tonight, so that doesn't really help the cause at all. But
doesn't end.
The only other thing is now soccer is pretty much over. I know there were like Olympics and stuff like that, but I mean, I don't even know when that starts or when the soccer starts and all that kind of stuff. But how did you like them apples? I guess we'll talk about both finals. I got to watch both yesterday, and if I could get the 2-3 hours of my life back for the night one, I really would. I already submitted a claim. But let's start with the Euros. Spain, England. What did you think?
It's a win for attacking football, right? I think that was a big thing, is that Spain as well deserved it the most, I think, out of any team in the tournament. They played well every single game. The only game that they didn't need to go to penalties for any game. Germany was the only one that took them to extra time. And they just proved that there is still room in this world for a kind of style of play that is attractive to watch, and not just sitting back and getting weight to hit and then hitting back on a counter, like England and France did. But yeah, it just overall, I think the first half was a rough watch. It was, you have those moments in the finals where the first 10, 15 minutes is feeling each other out. It felt like they were feeling each other out for the whole first half. And then second half, when Rodri came off, I was really surprised at halftime. And I thought, I don't know if this is going to go well. And then 90 seconds later, 1-0, and everything kind of broke open. So, yeah, I enjoyed the Euro. Again, I think it was a good second half to watch, and I wish Southgate would have just really gone for it in the last 20, 25 minutes rather than sitting back after it was equalized.
Yeah, in very typical Southgate fashion, he managed to pull that off at the end. They're like, let's sit back again. I don't know. I just felt the same way. Usually, when you talk about a team doing really well in the group stages and stuff, they just like flop in the next round, right? They're like, they were the best team during group stages. I mean, we said it back then. They were the best team during group stages. I think it's the only team that's won every game they played as well. So I think to a neutral, I know fans of England probably won't want to hear this, but I think most fans will say it was a well-deserved win for Spain. So I think, the game could have been probably better, but Spain is definitely a lot better team to watch. And I know, we talk a lot about Southgate in that Discord channel, that's for sure. And we've talked about it in the past over here. But, I mean, really, it's hard not to get the talents coming out of England to play poorly and not reach the later stages anyway. This England team cruised through elimination going up to the Euros because they were in an easy group. They were in an easy group in the Euros. They stumbled every freaking step, Slovakia and everything included, 90 seconds from being eliminated, where they probably should have been eliminated at that stage right there. And for them to play like a team like Turkey, Slovakia, and stuff like that, it's like, I don't know, Burnley when they play Liverpool, right? You can't really afford to play open. You do need to, defend first and stuff like that. You can kind of see that. But when you have a team like England and they're playing like the Faroe Islands, it just does not make sense to me. But do you think, because there were rumors before the game that he would probably sign a 2-year extension. Do you think they keep it? Because in some ways, you can't argue with the result.
Right. Yeah, I do think they signed the extension only because getting to back-to-back Euro finals is a huge accomplishment. Whether the style of play is good or not, it is not easy to get to the final in 2 consecutive tournaments. So I think on those merits alone, he would receive the extension. It's just like you were saying. It's one of those things where when you're looking at player by player and you're looking at the strength of positions, their strength in positions is everything from midfield up. Like arguably their defense isn't, John Stones is okay, right? Mark Gahey's okay. Kyle Walker's fine. But Luke Shaw, I'm surprised Luke Shaw even played the whole game. I will say he had a pretty great game, all things considered.
Yeah, they were like, he's having a great tournament. And I was like, he hasn't played.
No, yeah. But he really hasn't played since February, honestly. And he had a great game. But when you think about the players and what they're good at, if they were to attack, that's what they're good at. Those players have so much quality up front that it's mind-blowing to think that you would want to stifle that by playing a different kind of style. But yeah, I do think that he'll get an extension because he has been successful in getting them to as far as they've gotten. Obviously, penalty shootout against Italy, things go a different way. Yeah. They win. And then, it's 1-1 yesterday. Pickford doesn't have a shit clearance. Things might go differently as well. I don't know, it's a game of, just of really, really small decisions that go either way. But I think he does get the extension.
I think so, too. I mean, it's the results. And I think, he basically has that England team play tournament football all the time. And there's a reason why it's tournament football, because it is successful in tournaments usually, because you can't really get blown out because you are playing it so safe. And then with the talent he has, I can understand why he can be like, eventually we're going to score. Look at all the guys we got. But within that, it's just like there has to be. I think you can still do that, but have a more clear vision of how you want to attack. It does not look like, and I watched every game this tournament almost. For England, I watched every game for sure. And it's like, they just roll the ball out there. Like Southgate brings the ball, rolls it out there and says, come on, guys, make something happen. When they're attacking, with defending, there's shape and stuff like that. But I just don't see like a clear plan of attack in terms of like what they want to do. So it's not shocking that that team does not score a lot of goals. And guys that can really make a difference are not playing, despite making a difference when they come in, like Palmer and stuff like that. I think it's a crime that Palmer has not played more. And if I'm Palmer, I will be pretty pissed going home right now because you could have made a difference. Clearly, you can make a difference when you play. How about Trent? There's a lot of talk, obviously, because we're Liverpool. But do you think, I'm not mentioning Gomez because I don't think that was like he was, I think I was just happy for him to kind of get the experience and go there, kind of like be selected for it. But for Trent, do you think it would have made a difference? I know people are giving a lot of shit to Walker yesterday, but I would not want Trent facing Nico.
No, I think that would have been disastrous as well. The people were posting the images of the space behind Walker during the goals and talking about how, if Trent was there, he'd be getting absolutely destroyed by the media. And so, he would be, but that's because he has a history of it. So it just adds on to that. Walker has his moments, but he also is decent enough at getting back, or at least he has the pace to get back when he's switched on. So I think two things. One, I'm glad that Trent wasn't used in a way that could potentially scapegoat him by the people around him or by the people in the media. But I do think it's also upsetting for him that he wasn't able to make any impact besides that penalty that he scored. I think he would have wanted to try and make an impact. And maybe he's the kind of guy, if things didn't go well, he was ready to take that abuse from the media because he's like, fuck it. I just want to play. I just want to be given this chance. And I think, there were moments where they could have really used him. And it's just, it's difficult to sit here and say what would have been. But I think there's both ways to look at it. Where just happy he doesn't get shit for stuff he didn't do,
Yes.
and also upset that he is going to be upset as well that they didn't win because he could have had some part of an impact on the game.
Yeah, I don't know about the final. I mean, I said this before. I thought throughout the stages he could, uh, you know, have played as right back and you would not struggle against a team like Slovakia and stuff like that. You would be able to create more from the back. And yes, Kyle Walker's definitely better defensively. And I think it goes to speed, like you were saying, in the similar context as Gomez. Sometimes they can take a bad angle or a bad positioning, but even then they're fast enough to kind of make up for it and still get back and stuff like that. But throughout the tournaments, why he was not used more? I mean, we know why, I guess, in some ways, because it's defense first. It's almost like he's doing it out of FIFA and looking at defensive ratings and then like placing the people that way. And I think, you could have easily used Trent as right back and gotten away with it, honestly, all the way till probably the Spain game. Uh, Kazi says Walker is quick, but when he gets back there, he's incredible. No, he's not. Well, neither is Trent, but at least, his speed kind of makes him better defensively to me in that sense. Because let's face it, if Trent is there yesterday, that goal is still a goal. Part of it is because he gets sucked into the middle too much and then, like forgets the back. But I mean, how many times have we seen Trent totally let the guy in the back post just go through? So
Sure.
I not about yesterday as much. I don't watch that game yesterday and say if Trent was there kind of thing. My thing is I think throughout the tournament he could have played a lot more as right back and probably would have like 3-4 assists. Because even with his limited time, I think he had like the top chances created or something like that. Part of it because he does roll the dice. He does take the chances with the passes. But then again, his passes are more accurate. I mean, I do not understand how England plays in a way. England, a team like that, plays in a way where it's like Everton or Burnley, where Pickford is taking these like free kicks from like the halfway line, like chugging them into the box and stuff like that. And I'm like, this is what you guys got going here? Like Pickford booting it out, Pickford like kicking it off. I'm like, what is happening here? Like, is this really? Has Southgate watched modern football? Nobody does this anymore, for one. And then I just didn't realize, really, is Pickford your best option of all these technically gifted players in England to take these set pieces? And I'm not talking 95th minutes. I'm talking like late in games and stuff like that when they're coming back. It literally was like watching freaking like Everton trying to secure a point away or something like that. I think those are the things that get to me. Ryan, who's fixing his flat tire as he listening, says had the best players, but Spain was the better team. I do agree with that though. Like, what do you think? Like when you look at the starting 11s, maybe because Spain is so young and they're more unknown, like their wingers and stuff like that. They're kids, literally. I don't know if that's why, but when you look on paper, England's definitely a better squad. Like
From top to bottom, I would agree. And how annoying is it that that Yamal is 17 years old and Nico Williams is as young as, like, this Spain team is going to be a problem for 8 to 10 years. Like that golden generation from 2008, 2012 that won both Euros and the World Cup. That just might happen again in this over the next 6 years. So yeah, I think top to bottom, they do have a better team. England does. And Spain did play like a better team, which is really interesting because when we started talking about the Euros on this show before it started, we had mentioned that we didn't know what to think of Spain. Like we thought that they might be one of those teams. Like, yes, they have some talent, but they haven't really played well together. There's a lot of youth, like really young youth mixed with a lot of good experience. So sometimes that recipe works and sometimes it falls apart disastrously. And so I think given how wonderfully they played all tournament, I think it just came down to being on the same wavelength as far as what the objective was each game. And I think that comes down to the coaching. That comes down to just the players themselves. There wasn't really one specific player that felt like they needed to do more than others. And I think maybe sometimes that was the case for England, where there were moments where maybe, Bellingham thought he had to do more than he needed to, but that could also come down to the style of play as well. So yeah, it was a good team to watch. It was a fun team to watch, even without Pedri and Xavi too.
Yeah, that's another thing.
It's just they were missing a couple midfielders that they would have in there. I mean, I wish I could say that Carvajal won't be around for the next tournament, but Lord knows he could go on until he's 45.
I saw a thing, I can't remember where it was now, where he has, like, this year alone, what he has done is ridiculous. Like, obviously winning everything in Spain and stuff, but then not just like being there, like while they were winning, the fact that, he was getting like goals and assists and stuff like in these key games is freaking ridiculous for his age and for a guy that's not even like, oh, he's so fast or anything like that. He just knows how to play, when to make the runs, when to create space, and what they were doing on that right hand side to isolate him all and stuff. I mean, it was, that was almost annoying to watch in some ways. Saidu says Spain played technically with full of chemistry, while England is just, Spain is more of a team. They play as a team. There is a plan, and that's what I'm talking about. Like, you can kind of see what they're trying to do and what they're doing in terms of like trying to isolate the wingers. Sometimes they overload an area. Whereas I literally feel like you kind of see that happening with England, but it feels more like, oh, that's right, we've done this before, overloads. Like we practiced this before when I was in like City or something like that. And then that's how they do it. Like, it's not like they're doing it as a team. Maybe it's just like the assumption, but I don't know. It just definitely looks bad. Football Flashback is in the house. Now, what are you going to bet on? Because there's Olympics. He's waiting for Olympics, I assume, to bet on. But Ryan says he was literally rushing home to talk to us and hit a curb. So we're causing havoc in Indiana as we speak. Kazi says Nico Williams is as close to Sadio Mane as I've ever seen. Stands his man up, beats him, really smart, great press. Yes, and he's young. There were a couple of times where I was like, and I don't know if that's him or Cucurella. They had like some miscommunication. They went both for the same guy and stuff like that, left that wing open. What do you think? Do you think he is? I know Barcelona's going after him, so obviously they have the upper leg, but they were only talking like 40, 50 or something for him for his release clause.
Yeah, and then it just seems like a no-brainer to do at that point, right? I think it will be hard to lure him away from Spain if you have the likes of Barcelona going after him, because of growing up in Spain, you either want to play for Barcelona or Real Madrid typically, and that's kind of just how it goes. So if the release clause is only 40 to 50, I would be amazed if there aren't dozens of teams looking to see if they could pay that to get him. It's just a matter of where he wants to go. It would be difficult to say that it would be the perfect fit at the team, because we just don't know what the team is going to look like and how the team is going to set up. But it's hard not to want to like him and have him at the club. It's just a matter of then, who do you get rid of? And most likely the signs point to Luis Diaz. I don't know. I guess it's more of a sentimental thing of not wanting to sell Diaz more than a practical thing. I think when you look at the money, if you can get more money for him than you paid for him, that's good business, right? Always is good business. But from an emotional standpoint, from a sentimental standpoint, I feel like it'd be difficult to get rid of Lucho. I think like watching the Copa America is just he is the one guy, and I know it doesn't make up for everything else, but the amount of passion he plays with and the amount of just love he has just for the game specifically. It's fun to watch. Not that Nico doesn't have that, because he does. It's just we've watched Lucho for the last few years, and it's one of those things where it'd be difficult to replace. But yeah, it's a business that's always evolving and always changing, and you have to keep going. Otherwise, you get left behind. So at 22 years old, you have 5 years ahead of Diaz there. It would only make sense.
Yeah, he has, that is another connection that they have with Barcelona over there. So they have like definitely the insider track. And I think, before the tournament was the time, if you really like this guy, You would think. I don't think anybody is being bought. Your price might be varying a little bit, going up a little bit, coming down a little bit, but I don't think anybody is watching a tournament and saying, "Oh, we should buy this guy." I mean, there's a lot more serious scouting systems, I would hope to God, as opposed to that, unless you're like a poorly run club. But yeah, they had the inside out, and I think at this point, like you said, you got so many teams interested in him. It's like, it doesn't make, you're not going to be able to get a bidding war and win it. I think, not that we don't have the capacity. It's not something that I don't think Edwards would do. So you talked about Diaz, so let's get to that one, because that was a lot more torturous. And let's start with the whole, even before we get to the game. So there's obviously a lot of fiascos before the game. Again, security wise, people rushing in. And mind you, we've seen this before. We've seen it with like Wembley and stuff like that. I literally just watched like that documentary like 2-3 weeks ago. But dude, literally everybody has been complaining about this tournament. Like every coach in the press conference, this halftime show thing, their practice things, being fined for coming out a minute late and stuff like that. Why was this thing such a big flop? I think it has to be for a smaller tournament too. And maybe it's because you've seen the Euros at the same time, and it's a lot smoother, obviously, overall, with small like fan incidents here and there. That's always going to happen. But why do you think, and does it kind of scare you for the World Cup, I guess?
No, okay, and I think so. You see a lot of people saying, the U.S. shouldn't host the World Cup and this and that. If this is a site for the World Cup in a couple of years, then we're screwed, kind of thing. And I think it's ridiculous to say that, because the U.S. is able to have these huge sporting events, whether it's the Super Bowl, whether it's NFL games that have 70, 80,000 people go to the games each time. To say that they wouldn't be able to handle it is wrong. What it comes down to is the organization, the organizers of the tournament. I think with CONMEBOL, they didn't hire enough people to make this work, at least security wise. I think that was the disaster, was that they tried to save some money by not wanting to make sure, or by not hiring as many people as they thought they needed. And I think that comes down to just bad planning, bad organizing. I don't even remember where I was going to go with that, to be honest.
So you're thinking it will be different because it will be FIFA handling the
Yes, sorry, that's where I was going. Yeah, because FIFA, there's more money in FIFA, and there's going to be, I think this was an interesting learning experience as well. But it's not like the U.S. hasn't hosted major football tournaments before. They hosted the World Cup in the 90s. They hosted a Copa in the 2000s, and didn't have the same thing. So this is just maybe just a perfect storm of bad planning, bad organizing, and a lot of fans in a specific area that really wanted to get into the game. And when you think about Miami, it's a very Latino heavy place in the U.S. And you think about the amount of, I think there's 300,000 Colombians in Southern Florida. So when you think about the amount of people there and the amount of potential desire to get to these games, and you add all that together, it's not usually a good recipe. Obviously, I don't want to only fault the security, because it does go down to the people as well as not ruining the experience for others. But
no, people are people.
But people are people, exactly. And this is why you put yourself in the best position to not allow this stuff to happen. And thankfully, I'm sure we'll hear some more reports about any injuries, but as far as we know, there at least wasn't anyone that had died. Some of the videos that were coming out were pretty horrific to watch. Some of the gates coming down and kids kind of being right in front of those gates as those gates coming down and people trampling over. So the sights weren't great to see, and then the game was awful as well. And just, I don't know, overall, it just did not look good.
This isn't all high fives after someone gets 5 hours. Very patriotic and fierce sport, but they knew this. I mean, that's like, and that was my thing. That they have hosted a World Cup before. They have hosted. It's not like, oh, we didn't realize people were so passionate, kind of an ordeal. And I don't know, like, do you think? So when you watch that, what happened at the Wembley final, right? There's a lot of people who are basically getting drunk and going there, hoping maybe something will happen. If not, nothing, or they don't have anything to lose. This is their one shot and stuff like that. As you listen to their stories and shit, um, I was like, how is this happening in Miami? Like a dude from Argentina did not go there to be like, maybe something will happen. Like you either went there knowing that, or you just happen to be a local that's like trying to see if you can get in, kind of an ordeal. Otherwise, I don't see how it would happen. They've hosted soccer tournaments before. They know it's not just like a baseball game where it's gonna be like, we'll eat a couple of hot dogs and go home. Whoever wins, we'll all have fun, kind of an ordeal. You know how tense it's going to be. It's a freaking final, for God's sakes. But even before the final, I mean, we've seen what happened in the Uruguay game with Nunez and stuff like that. Other incidents throughout. Managers complaining about a bunch of different things. Jesse March was complaining. I was like, literally, like my YouTube feed was full of managers bitching about the tournament in their press conferences about like different topics and stuff like that. So I just don't understand how even if the federation is in charge, isn't there like checks and balances of some sort where some guy says, hey, we used like 12,000 guys in, what was it, 2006? They did it or something like that, somewhere around there.
Mid 2000s, yeah.
Where so like, hey, we used 12,000, so 6,000 is probably not going to cut it. Like, isn't there somebody else overseeing it? Isn't FIFA overseeing it at the end of the day? Because FIFA is the big boy.
That I don't know, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend to say that I do know and come up with some sort of answer. You would think that there would be, and you would think there would be some sort of a step every step of the way, that there is someone there to take care of each situation or to be able to predict each situation. But yeah, it difficult to say where until we really find out more. It's going to be difficult to say where all the blame will go to.
Yeah, it was just like mind scratching overall. Everything that you see about the companies needs to secure the countries where the grounds are neutral. Yeah, I mean, they were not separated, and I understand it's a bit more difficult in a tournament like this, maybe, because it'll be easier in a World Cup, right? Because there's cities assigned and all that kind of stuff, whereas this is shuffling around a bit more. You don't know who's going to be there. Clearly, there's a lot more Colombian fans than Argentina fans, but at least if you did what Sergi is saying, and you were able to kind of like, put the fans separated, you would have all Colombian sections, and you would have some sections maybe that were 70% Argentina, 30% Colombia, and stuff like that. Honestly, like Argentina fans look like dudes who watch Miami FC, grabbed their Messi jersey and came to the game, kind of thing, and everybody else was like Colombian. Having said that, how brutal was that game? And I know finals are usually not fun to watch, but God, I don't know, because it was after the Euros, it was just a painful watch.
I think part of it, and I think we talked about it in the Discord, I think potentially mentally for some of these players, knowing what was going on outside of the stadium could have a slight impact on the pitch. We saw, McAllister's family, McAllister having to leave to get his family to come into the stadium. So they knew what was going on before they were going out onto the pitch. So it's not like they were being shielded away from that or not being told. So I think maybe mentally that does. Every player, every team, for the most part, probably has some sort of regimen that they go through, some sort of structure to pregame. Yeah. And when you mess around with that for 80 plus minutes, it can really throw you off a groove. Not to say that we would have expected more, but yeah, it wasn't a great watch. I think, if there was that Colombia chance in the 7th or 8th minute that went off the post, I think if that goes in, I think the rest of the game is much different. It would be much more enjoyable. But overall, yeah, there were just a lot of Argentinians on the pitch at all times. And I don't know, it just wasn't an enjoyable watch at all, unfortunately. I think, unfortunately, for any people trying to get into the sport and seeing that it was hosted in the US, so you probably have some newcomers that are trying to get into the sport. That wasn't the best display and the best way to get someone to like the sport. I went to the Fire game on Saturday, And I will have to say it was a 0-0, one of the worst Fire games I'd ever been to. And we went there with Michelle's one of Michelle's best friends and her new boyfriend, who hasn't gone to any soccer games. And I had to apologize to him after like 60 minutes and say, "Hey, look, man, I'm trying to convert you, but this isn't the way. I'm so sorry. We'll try again another time, or I'll have you watch something on the screen."
I have some taped games of Liverpool. I'll show you when we get home.
Yeah. So that was, and it felt like that, except thankfully I was in the comfort of my own bed rather than at the game. So,
yeah, I don't know. It was, look, the South American teams when they play each other. But I mean, I watched Colombia-Uruguay game, which was a lot more physical, got out of control a lot more. But that was like a fun watch. It was like an exciting watch. And it's weirdly, it felt like there was more on the line in that game than in the final. Is that due to Uruguay being more of like a Tasmanian devil style compared to Argentina, you think? Because Argentina likes, and they play like way too defensively as well. I mean, we talk shit about like England. I mean, Argentina, geez, man. Like they're like, we'll sit back over here, give it to Messi, give it to Di Maria, see if they make something happen. If not, we'll just sit over here. And that's basically how they play. You think, is that why? Like, because Argentina plays really calm. Colombia was really the more aggressive team as you watch them. But then, they didn't take their chances and stuff like that. But it was like the pacing was off. Mind you, anybody who feels anything around their face goes down in a heap now for like 45, 50 seconds at a time. It's just a difficult watch. Is it because of the teams, or is just a Copa America final that was going to be cagey?
Probably a little bit of both of that, to be honest. And, at least in Argentina's defensive setup, they only let up one goal the entire tournament, right? Whereas if you look at England, they trailed every game in the knockouts, right? They conceded a goal. So there is setting up defensively and then setting up defensively and actually working defensively as well. So at least Argentina had that going. But I think due to your previous question about why Uruguay and Colombia felt like there was more on the line, was that you sort of expected Argentina to get to the final. You can typically expect Brazil to get to the final. So when you have Brazil go out and you have these two nations that haven't competed for a major trophy for a while, have these two teams go at it, there is a lot more in it. So for either of them to be able to get to that final to play Argentina, just because of the expectations, because of them not usually, those kinds of nations have their moments every so often to make it there, and then they can lose that moment for the next 6 to 8 years. Argentina and Brazil, they don't make the final one year. Next tournament, they're most likely going to have another chance to get to the final. So I think for Colombia and Uruguay, there was a huge amount of this is the chance to get there, and that's why it felt like there was so much more on the line.
That makes sense. Because I think, and Argentina, I don't know, like it seemed they were like, oh, they're like, this is like I don't know, was anybody in Argentina in terms of players really seeing this as a huge stressful game? These guys are mostly guys who just played a World Cup final. So a Copa America final that they won, mind you, before that. It can't be something that's like really like shaking them up or whatever. Whereas, like Saido was talking about, they were unlucky. I feel like there were a couple of times where they were just like rushing things and like just sending balls. And my buddy Ace is Colombian, so we were texting back and forth during the game. And even he's like, why are they keep crossing the ball into the box where there's only one guy? It just seemed very aimless. They were just throwing everything they could at Argentina, hoping something could happen. And obviously nothing was happening. But
it honestly looked like those run of games for Liverpool where they're just trying so hard. Doing anything they can to put it in without much of an aim. That was sort of what it looked like for a bit.
Yes, right? Like there is they're like, something's going to happen, right? So like just keep chugging the ball into the box and just, it was just like, that's probably why it was. And when it went to overtime, I was like, God damn, man, can we just go to the penalty kicks right away? But Honestly, the overtime was a bit better because I think once people start getting tired, the midfield drops, and obviously you
They
got the
opened
bench
up.
guys
Yeah.
coming in and stuff like that. But and honestly, both of our boys were off the pitch. If it was going to go to the penalty kicks, they were not going to take that. Do you think that's adds or subtracts anything the result of that game to Diaz and McAllister?
It adds happiness to me that they aren't hurt, but to them specifically, I don't know. I don't think so.
Like I can't see McAllister being extra hyped up after he has already won this tournament. He has won the World Cup. This is going to be like another feather in my cap kind of a deal. Whereas, how do you think it affects, I guess, Diaz more importantly?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it goes without saying that if the trophy would have meant a lot more to Diaz than it would for McAllister, and I think having Diaz come back to Liverpool, potentially, I guess, rumored he might not come back, might be sold, whatever the case, but having him come back on the high of winning a trophy could then produce this, the Lucho that we knew of before the injury. But it's hard to say if that would have happened because we've seen the change in his game a little bit. But I think just mentally, it's always good to have your players come back after a successful run of and he had a good tournament though, so it's not like it was not like he's going to have a lot to be upset about besides just not winning the final. So at least there's that part of it. But I think overall it would have been a much more positive impact on him winning than McAllister winning.
Yeah, I don't think we got much. I feel like we had a couple of performances when you go back and look at the Euros, like Gakpo and stuff like that. You're like, okay, that's going to come back and probably help us. You look at Copa America, you're like, none of this is really helping us. I mean, Diaz looks Diaz. So now you understand why he's all over the place because he has that freedom in Colombia. Suddenly popping up on the right, popping on the left and stuff like that. Nunez, we all know the incident that happened. So that did not go I think if that doesn't happen, we could have probably looked back and said, hey, at least he scores some goals. He might bring over that confidence kind of an ordeal. But obviously it ends with that incident, him in the stands and stuff like that. So that's not a big plus. And like I say, I don't think McAllister is taking way too much. McAllister does not fit that Argentina team, by the way. We were looking at it with Angie last night, and I'm like, he just does not fit. Like, he's like this guy that's like a normal, like the nerds hanging out with these guys that are trying to make like bad things happen and stuff with Enzo and stuff like that. He just like, oh, I'm just here to play, guys.
Just want to be cool like you guys. I'll do whatever you need to do. I'll take a couple extra seconds on the ground. That's what you want me to do? That's fine. I'll do that.
Yeah, it was just like, it's just odd. He just does not fit. But he had a couple of good moments yesterday. It's just the way that Argentina play. I don't think it suits. You're not getting the best out of him. And I honestly thought the moment Messi. And are we done? Like, are we fucking done with the Messi Ronaldo bullshit? Are we done? Can we take him behind?
Will we ever be done?
I've been done for like 5-8 years now, but I wonder if we're like totally done now, not seeing, hearing about these guys. I'm almost okay with these commentators drooling over somebody else. I mean, and that's why I think it was Argentina. Like my buddy Ace was like, they're done now that Messi is done, kind of a thing. And I'm like, I don't know about that. I feel like they played better. It was flowing a lot better because you don't have to be like, where is Messi every time you get the ball, and you can actually just freaking play. I mean, you could have played McAllister in that spot and probably at least got him more work defensively as well. Because they are literally, I mean, you watch Colombia build play, Messi is not going to press. They can just like literally walk by Messi and keep going. I know why he's there and he can make something happen, but it just made like it was like the James Harden of Copa America, it felt like, right? Like, just when you guys get the ball, give it to me, and I'm just gonna do some stuff, and then sometimes it's gonna work. I know you're a huge James Harden fan, by the way.
No, I'm not. What are you talking about?
Oh shit, that's what I forgot. But I know you had to leave early today anyway.
I do, yeah.
So we're gonna wrap up the show early. So I know I did promise to bring some high quality Matouche footage here. So I will bring that next Monday so we can kind of really criticize some of his layups and stuff. The technique, I don't know. So we'll definitely take a look at that stuff and criticize that, because I don't know if we're gonna have any Liverpool news. So we might have to go with your basketball footage anyway.
Really going to be scraping the bottom of the barrel for something to talk about next week.
Oh, no. People are going to really enjoy this one. I can guarantee you that. So what's the plan for today? The day off?
Barber for me, groomer for Blue.
Oh, damn.
It's a packed day, man.
It's a mass grooming day at the Materials Hospital. Recovering from that freaking storm. My boy shed enough to we don't need any goddamn groomers after that storm. But yeah, we will wrap up early today. But I will be back tonight with the boys. So we'll probably be talking about the finals a little bit there as well. I'm sure there'll be a lot of England talk because I know Gally is a huge fan of Southgate. So we'll see how he took that final and stuff. But so do tune in then. We'll see you guys there and have an excellent week, everybody. Excellent Monday to start off the week. And we'll see you guys tonight. Take care.